It seeks to protect the Indic identity from being distorted. It seeks to promote Indic thought on local and global consumers, practitioners, and seekers. Indica seeks to act as a hub for ecosystem and catalyze new initiatives. Towards this end, Indica collaborates with universities, colleges, schools, research institutions, NGOs, publishers, media houses, ashrams, gurukuls, think tanks, associations, endowments, platforms, academics, authors like Saiswaroopa here, artists and activists. And we also like to mention that we are in the US, we are a not-for-profit 501c3 organization. That means if you at any point want to contribute any monetary fund, it is tax exempt. And you can always visit us on our website. It's indicacademy.org for all the activities that we do. And a quick introduction about Saiswaroopa. Saiswaroopa is an author of several books, including Draupadi, Tale of an Empress. She's an IIT graduate and a former analyst with venture capital firm. Saiswaroopa is also a writing coach, and she mentors aspiring writers and authors. Our topic today for discussion is Dharma during troubled times, a perspective from Mahabharata. We all know that the Mahabharata is one of the texts, civilizational texts, which tells us a civilizational story. It's itihasa. There's a lot of people talk about history, historicity, and what is critical and scientific and all that. But we are not going to go into that. But just to start with, Saiswaroopa, can you just give I mentioned your short bio, but can you quickly tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Thanks a lot for the warm welcome, Avdansji. Thanks a lot, Indica, for this wonderful initiative. It feels really delightful to gather online and meet so many people enthusiastic about Indian civilization. So a little bit about myself. I worked as a as an investment analyst with a venture capital firm. Before that, I worked for a very brief period with an IT company and then as a freelancer. But my introduction to the Indian civilizational literature, philosophy, and arts was done by my parents at a very young age. I learned Carnatic music. So that was my introduction to the Indic Sahitya, as well as I started reading Mahabharata and Ramayana from the various pictorial sources available, be it Amar Chitrakatha, be it Ramakrishna missions publications and Chinmaya publications, and my interest steadily increased as I grew up. There was a short break owing to the academics and this career and all that, but I think the inner calling persisted, and my first book, Abhaya, was a response to, if I can correctly word it, it's not exactly a response, but it was born out of a certain conversation I had with a Muslim friend of mine in high school, when I was studying 12th. So she asked me very innocently that, there was at the grassroots of India, we have friendly conversations which are loaded with this dissent and don't hold it against each other. It's not like how media portrays us as people hating each other or whatever, but at grassroots levels, we do, ask bold questions to each other because we are kind of secure about our relationship. So this particular Muslim friend of mine asked me about Krishna. She asked me, I heard that Krishna has thousands of wives, and how come you guys worship him as well as you guys worship Lord Rama, who is so faithful to his wife? That's what she had heard. And then I explained to her at that age, it was basically, I assumed that she doesn't know the story. I explained to her the episode of Narakasura Vadha, where there is an Asura called Bhauma or Naraka, who abducted about 16,000, more than 16,000 women from all over the ancient Bharat. And he had held them captive at Pragjyotishapura. Lord Krishna, after he comes to know of it, he goes there along with his consort Satyabhama, according to certain sources. They kill Narakasura, free those women, and but because the women are not confident enough to return to the homes of their families, husbands or fathers or whatever, they are not confident of coming back and joining mainstream life. And Krishna accepts them all as his wives so that they have a life of dignity ahead. So the story doesn't just end with killing the evil. The story also requires the hero to the Lord, the hero, or however people want to interpret it, to lay a new world order. So that is the story, and that's what I explained it to her. She was happy for the moment, but somehow the conversation stayed in my heart, and I just felt that it was a very underrated tale, and it was a story that needed more telling, because if that is the level of people's knowledge, that was a story which needed to be told again and again. And I wanted to narrate it from the perspective of one of the women rescued by Lord Krishna. So the result of that work is this book of mine, Abhaya, I guess. Abhaya. And so I got to finally write it once I realized, after a long gap, when I realized that the story was still alive within me despite the whole academic invasion into my life.
Can you hold the book up for a second again, please, for everybody to take a look at it?
Sure. I think because it's seen in a reverse manner, I guess.
No, I think it's good.
It's good? Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Yes, please, everybody, please be sure to buy some of our books too.
Yes, the Kindle editions are available on all the global Amazon platforms, and it's available on Kindle Unlimited also for free for unlimited subscribers.
Okay.
So do please check it out.
Okay. Thank you for that introduction, Saiswaroopa ji. Before you go into your main presentation, would you please also tell us very shortly about the Mahabharata text itself? Very, very shortly. I am sure everybody knows about it, but from your perspective.
From my perspective, Mahabharata is a lot of things. You think that today Mahabharata constitutes something to me. 2 years later, it'll come out to be something else, that thing and something else. So it has that quality of growing along with you. It has the quality of making you grow along with your life. So that is the kind of exhaustive text which has something for everyone. So if you are a 8 or 9 year old child just wanting a good story, the Mahabharata has the perfect story. There is a story structure that a lot of successful authors are supposed to have composed. But the Mahabharata has that perfect what do you say, that kind of highs and lows that a protagonist goes through. There's something called a proactive phase, a reactive phase, a game changers, a lot of such points in the story. So if you want a good story, Mahabharata has that. If you want great characters, conflicted characters, a basket of three-dimensional characters, somebody who is capable of everything but is restraining himself, somebody who is not capable of much but is shouting out his capabilities, someone who has, has the, like Arjuna, who has the valor. He's the hero of the Kurukshetra. If you actually read the unabridged edition, wherever he enters, the battle turns tables. So, being the hero, he has his own, what do you say, reservations about the whole battle. And then there is somebody like Krishna who, who just has the ability to give the right perspective when it is needed. Of course, he is Bhagavan, so that's what is expected of him. Then there is somebody like Vidura who know everything and is so, blissfully detached as well as committed to the truth. So just depending upon our own life experiences, Mahabharata has at least one or two characters with whom we can connect and we look up to for our own guidance. That way, on at a personal level. Then flurry of what do you say, those insightful conversations. Today I'll touch upon a couple of such conversations along the text, where very insightful content, which can be, which is timeless. Even today we have a lot to learn from the whole text. I guess Doordarshan started retelecasting the old time series of Ramayana and Mahabharata, and a lot of actors feel that Mahabharata and Ramayana have enough to excite even the Netflix generation. Maybe Netflix may stay for a while, and something new may replace it, but nothing can replace Mahabharata, is what is my opinion.
Right,
It
right.
has,
Very well said. Very well put. I mean, I think Mahabharata and all our texts are ageless and for everybody and for all ashramas, different ashramas that we go
exactly,
through.
exactly.
There is a moral, there is a story for everybody, something to learn about. So now, getting right into it, I will let you start your presentation. Not let you, I will request you to start your presentation. I'm sorry.
Okay,
This kind of this kind of medium gives us a little bit of informality, so I apologize for
yes,
this.
yes, yes. I love the touch of informality because it kind
Okay,
of
so
gives
please go ahead and
something that's important to me.
okay.
So, namaste everyone. So I'll start my presentation. Even presentation is a formal word, but let us talk. Let us start today's conversation. Avtansji made a great start with talking about Mahabharata itself, and Mahabharata is something which has survived, millennia after millennia, because it found a way to reinvent itself to be relevant. A part of Mahabharata will always be relevant, or a whole of Mahabharata will always be relevant, regardless of which issue faces the world, right? The world faces. But the side effect of such an immortal epic is that a lot of folklore and popular imagination makes its way into the population's minds, and somewhere the source literature becomes new again, because you would have heard a totally different version of the story, that when you turn to the actual source literature, like my go-to reference is the critical edition brought together by Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, Pune, translated into English by Dr. Vivek Debroy. And there is another edition called I think it's
Subkanka.
Calcutta edition, which is translated by Kesari Mohan Ganguly ji, though the language is a bit poetical and what many call as archaic, but it's a great online resource when you want to quickly refer to or something. I'll start by talking about a few interesting myths that later versions or retellings of Mahabharata on various media have brought to us, which is not supported by the source literature. One is Draupadi did not comment, did not say Andhika Putra Andha. That comment was not the blind man's son is also blind kind of a comment is not passed by Draupadi when Duryodhana slips into the palace pool. Of course, she's not that kind of a woman who goes on passing, comments. But this is something this is something that comes to fore during Bhasa's period, the classical period, basically, where he was centering the epic around Duryodhana with a good intention to tell the audience about what can happen of a very talented, handsome man with all capabilities if he makes the wrong choice. So that was what Bhasa wanted to tell with his narration. But the this comment comes in Bhasa's somehow in Bhasa's dramatics. This found a place, but this is not supported by any of Vyasa's Veda Vyasa's narratives. But somehow this happens to be more popular than Vyasa's narrative itself. The other thing is Draupadi did not reject Karna for being a Sutaputra during her Swayamvara. In fact, there are two versions from the unabridged itself. One says Karna participated in the Swayamvara but missed the target. That particular version has very beautiful descriptions of how much gap with how much gap each contestant missed it, how much gap, like with so much of seed, like a pea seed gap, say Duryodhana missed it, Arjuna Karna missed it by a hair breadth, and there's some Jarasandha missed it by 4 inches or 5 inches or something like that. So it actually gives it's a beautiful narration because it doesn't declare that other contestants as failures, because it's Dhanurvidya, it's used in a practical sense. It says about how much accurately the bow, that particular bowman can hit the target, right? It doesn't term them as losers exactly. But there are other versions which said Karna couldn't even lift the bow. So even saying I cannot marry a Sutaputra is not supported by Veda Vyasa's narratives. And there's another thing that there's very popularly shown in most of the visual renderings of Mahabharata is on the day 14th day of battle. Arjuna is supposed to kill Jayadratha by the end of 14th day. And because things got tough, we are shown that Krishna causes a solar eclipse, or he pushes his Sudarshana chakra to cover the sun. Sudarshana chakra itself is in all the Vaishnavite theories, Sudarshan chakra itself is worshipped as something which has the splendor of a thousand suns. So I don't know how is that supposed to cover the sun and make the sky appear darker, but somehow that made way into the popular imaginations. Whereas in the critical edition, at least, we see that Arjuna kills Jayadratha well in time, and a lot of battle follows that till the sunset, and then there is a night battle, which is another story. Then about Karna, right? He was never rejected by Drona. When he wanted to learn archery, Drona very happily taught him all the basics of archery. It was only even a lot of basic Divyastras also, if I remember right. It was only that he was very choosy about whom to teach Brahmastra. Right? And even in the battle of Kurukshetra, we don't see many people using Brahmastra other than Drona. Bhishma did not use the Brahmastra as far as I remember. One of Drupada and Virata, Yudhishthira, and Arjuna. Right? And Karna again, during his final battle with Arjuna, not many, warriors get to know and learn Brahmastra, because it is the Guru's decision whether each student has the adhikara to grasp the Brahmastra and use it judiciously. Yes, Ashwathama was another person who knew Brahmastra. So it's like a guru has to always qualify a student, whether he has that adhikara to bear the knowledge, whether it is missile knowledge or even spiritual knowledge for that extent, to that matter. It has to, a student has to possess that adhikara, right? And it is not because of Karna's caste. There are tons of kshatriya princes and kings who did not get to learn Brahmastra because their gurus did not think they were qualified. But somehow the later narratives made it very caste oriented, made the whole thing very caste oriented, and then they make Karna sound like a very wronged hero, because of being a Sutaputra. He was not taught that, he was not taught this. Actually, Karna he learned basics from Drona, as well as he went and lied to uh, Bhargava, the Parashurama, and he got a lot of whole Parashurama's treasury of Divyastras, as well as Parashurama gifted him with a bow that is unbreakable. He gifted him with a chariot, which was almost as good a chariot as Arjuna had, except for that weak moment, which was again earned because Karna's experiment with Shabda Veda went wrong. So, of course, I mean, sorry for detailing it out that much. So there are a lot of such myths which have made their way towards popular imagination in popular renderings of Mahabharata, which are not supported by any of or most of Vyasa's narratives. And my intention was to kindle the interest of everyone here and anyone who watches the video in future, to go back and read the source literature. So that was because Mahabharata has this treasury of conversations. Even a couple of years back, I thought Kurukshetra is the most exciting part of Mahabharata, because you see everybody get tested to their maximum extent. You see great people losing it. You see suddenly dark horses emerging out victorious. And it's a exciting phase. But recently, I have discovered that Shanti Parva, which has Bhishma's sermons to Yudhishthira after the war, on statecraft, on various dharmas of a king, a kshatriya, and so on. That seemed to be so interesting. That would have been a phase where I would have skipped, when during college or that time. But that is so exciting, because so much of knowledge which is totally relevant to today's crisis that we face, which we can apply and get through the trying period. So one such conversation, one such story told by Bhishma to Yudhishthira, I'd like to recount. I hope we are not running out of time, Avtansji.
No, no, no,
Oh,
no.
sure.
We're good. We're good. I'll let you know.
Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
So, it's a very popular story. I was surprised to find it in Mahabharata itself when I started reading the unabridged version of Mahabharata. So there's a very popular story about three fishes in the lake. This is about Apad Dharma, where Bhishma says about Dharma during the times of crisis to Yudhishthira. So there are these three fishes in a lake. The names, if I remember right, are Duradarshi, Praptakalagna, and Dirghasutra. The first fish has a lot of forethought. It can sense danger from a distance. The other fish isn't very worried about an upcoming danger, because it has a lot of on the on the knee wit it can use to get out of any trying situation. And the other fish is happily complacent about whatever is going to happen, the Dirgha Sutra. So Duradarshi, one fine day, she tells the other two fishes, ki summer is approaching, and we are in our lake is sure to dry up. So before the channel that connects us to the river, or larger mass of water dries up, we should reach the river. The other two fishes are like, never has it happened that our lake dried up in summer. So, we don't want to get uprooted from our natural habitat to a river where there are bigger fish. We may face other dangers. We don't want to take that risk. So Duradarshi, it's like, okay, your choice. And Duradarshi escapes to the larger body of water. Then there is Prapta Kalagnya. Then the summer approaches, and as the first fish predicts, the channel that covers that connects this lake to the river dries up, and there's no way out. And because it's summer and the water is drying up, the fishermen are emboldened to come and fish. Right, Prapta Kalagnya and Dirgha Sutra, both of them get caught in one such net. And very because Prapta Kalagnya, it knows to escape from it thinks fast on its feet or fins. So basically all the fishermen, they stop by a smaller water source to clean the fish. At one such a stop, Prapta Kalagnya, it acts like dead all the while. But at one such an opportune moment, it escapes into that body of water and somehow makes its way into the river. And there is the other fish who cannot, you know, it neither had the wisdom to listen to a wiser fish who could foresee the danger, nor did it have that wit that the second fish had, which is why it was caught in the fisher's net. It could not escape. Finally it died. So basically that was Bhishma's lesson to Yudhishthira about how to escape from an imminent danger. One has to be ready to face other dangers if there is a chance to survive. If there is a chance to survive, you have to take the risk, and which is what Bhishma wants to tell. That's what something I find very relevant to today's crisis, where all my WhatsApp groups are filled with debates regarding whether we are overreacting to COVID-19, whether lockdown was it was necessary, unnecessary, prepared, unprepared, or whatever. But it's always, I feel it's always safe to it's always good to play safe and restrict our movements and restrict the movement of the virus as well. uh, so that's one story I remembered due to crisis times. And there's some other source from where I saw a crisis. The apada, right, is of three types. Right, one is from natural calamities, something where nature doesn't act very benevolent. And there are crises that arrive because of an enemy. And there are crises which arrive because of our own physical failure. Right, and the COVID crisis we face today seems to be giving space to all theories. I think it's a strange combination of all the three. Right, so that is the time where one would be surprised when we go through the whole Shanti Parva, the way Bhishma puts Dharma and Artha, both of them, on an equal pedestal. Right, because one, he keeps stressing the fact that without Artha means the wealth of various kinds. It can be valor also, right? So without that strength and splendor, right, Dharma weakens. He makes that point repeatedly across all his anecdotes and lessons. He makes that point that Dharma weakens without Shri, without Artha, without valor. So it's very imperative that I think we at least after independence, or the first 2-3 decades, we have undermined the importance of Artha at a policy level, calling profit dirty, or not giving enough platform for wealth creation, which used to be put on an equal footing along with Dharma. uh, in the four Purusharthas in the times of Mahabharata, which is why we had such kings who could maintain, who could put together, who could hold their kingdoms together despite, in spite of all the crisis. Because we hear about kings suffering, but we don't hear much about the kingdom and subjects suffering, right? Because there were kings who took the hit upon themselves so that their subjects don't suffer, or at least they can limit the damage that the kingdom kind of can suffer. So that's about I think I've made my point clear about the treasury of knowledge that Mahabharata offers. Not This is about theoretical part, right? Where someone in Mahabharata, someone knowledgeable in Mahabharata, is giving that particular lesson, depending on the context, to someone who has the adhikara. Here we have Bhishma and Yudhishthira. And Mahabharata has a lot of practical lessons where the characters, where the people showed in practice on what to practice, how to act during a crisis. The greatest lesson I found was from Empress Draupadi during the crisis called Dice Game. Right. And again, a lot of popular imagination, reimaginations of Mahabharata, they portray her as the victim of that whole episode. But to me, I think she is the hero of that episode. Totally, she had that capability of coming out of it. She just did not save herself, but she also saved her husbands from slavery, right? And if unfortunately, visual renderings of Mahabharata dwell a lot upon insults heaped upon her, and on the Vastra Harana, and about Lord Krishna saving her, and the whole miraculous incident that takes the spotlight off from the very long intellectual conversation that Draupadi carries out. And she totally overwhelms Dhritarashtra and others sitting there with her sheer intellectual capability. I strongly encourage you all to go back and read the unabridged edition, as well as my book, which is a fictional narration of how Draupadi handled the crisis. Yes, and I want all of you to read the unabridged edition. The easiest one is Dr. Vivek Debroy's. I think it's volume 2 or 3 of the 10-volume set, where after that attempt to disrobe her, she manages to get out of it. After that, the way she builds dissent, right? There is Vikarna challenging the validity of the game, right? The validity of her being wagered. She starts the question. Vikarna supports her. He is put down. Then there is Vidura, who was against the whole thing since the beginning. He is emboldened, and he keeps starting. Then there are other rishis in the Sabha who lend their voice. And finally, there is Gandhari, who comes and questions the king. And the whole dissent, the way it builds up, it totally overwhelms Dhritarashtra, that he's forced to annul the game. And he says, Draupadi, ask for a boon, because a lot of wrong things have happened today that should not have happened. Let me try and compensate you. And at that moment, Draupadi asks, what does she ask for? She asks for the freedom of her husband, Yudhishthira, the man who wagered her, right? Because, I mean, she could be angry with him. Any woman can be angry at that with the husband who did that. But that was the moment where she kept her head when everybody around her lost it, and decided that being together, sticking together was the solution to come out of this crisis. Not falling apart. Falling apart is not going to serve any purpose. She knew that. She knew that the 5 brothers, when they were together and she was with them, they conquered the world. They became emperors. She became the empress. She has seen what unity could do to them. So she was not prepared to let go of that unity in the time of crisis. And she had that much wisdom at that point of time where most of us would have lost our minds, right? So she asks for the freedom of Yudhishthira. Dhritarashtra says, okay, I mean, that's expected, and I'm not happy with just that. Ask for something else. And she says, free my other four husbands, Bhima, Arjuna, Nakula, Sahadeva, and their weapons. Right? Now things get interesting. Now Dhritarashtra knows that Pandavas are very angry but could not react because of whatever the conditions of the dice game were. But now they are free men and their weapons are back in their hands and something is going to happen. He knew that. So he just continues on saying, yes, that is also granted, but I'm still not happy with this particular compensation. I give you back your kingdom, and let us try and forget this whole unpleasant episode. Please go back to your kingdom and lead your lives as you used to lead till today. So at one stroke, she brought back from dire depths of poverty and slavery. She brought the situation back to being the empress that she is, right? Being the Pandavas being the emperors like they were. The whole story of a second game and the exile is another, the maybe out of scope for this particular conversation, because that's uh, what I wanted to stress upon is Draupadi's the combination of her compassion, wisdom, as well as emphasis on what to do when, right? The right action at the right time, right? That is an inspiring lesson for all of us, irrespective of the problems that we face, which is why she continues to be a very inspiring, towering, inspiring figure to all of us. Whether Netflix stays or not, I think Draupadi would continue to be an inspiration to all of us. And sorry, I think I get just went on and on.
No,
No.
no, that was perfect. That was very good, excellent. Um, and I thank you for your presentation. But I just wanted to ask one question. I mean,
Sure.
people, in terms of dharma, a lot of people have, you know, take one dharma and then superimpose that one dharma on the whole society or the whole, but
Yes.
dharma is a very layered concept,
It's
right?
a very layered concept. It's a very contextual concept, very
Exactly.
dynamic concept.
Right.
Right.
It is one rule that rules the whole entire cosmos, but then again, there are all sorts of layerings. Individual. You have family. You have your neighborhood. Then Raj Dharma, this Dharma and that Dharma. So you need a little bit of. You means us. We need a little bit of more deeper understanding to do our own swadharma, and we are able to discriminate about what is not our dharma and what is not my dharma, that kind of thing.
Yes, and the two favorite references to dharma that I have is, one is the etymology of dharma itself, which says dharayeti iti dharmaha.
Yeah.
So whatever balances, keeps, whatever maintains you or your ecosystem or your world in that state of balance is dharma, and whatever is causing that imbalance or something, right? So that is adharma. So you have to put up a counterbalancing action. If there is an imbalancing force, you have to put up a counterbalancing action. That is dharma in action. So sometimes it could be war is dharma, and sometimes not going on war can also be dharma. When So it depends upon the context, and it's a journey to understand the whole concept itself. And there's another beautiful commentary given by Shri K.M. Munshi in his Krishna Avatara series, where there is a whole beautiful chapter dedicated to Krishna wondering about what is his dharma. So then he sees Satrajit, right, the father of Satyabhama, who in that particular story is a profit thirsty merchant. But from the point of Satrajit, profit is not bad, right? Profiting is not bad. That is dharma. That is not adharma. But that is not enough of dharma. That's not enough to be called dharma. So that way he keeps on observing various individuals, and then Krishna concludes that dharma is something which welds your thought, word and action, so that you overcome your weaknesses, you build upon your strengths and overcome weaknesses. And finally dharma is what makes you feel one with the world and makes the world be within you, so that you are Vasudeva, the Lord of the earth. So that is Krishna's dharma. So that's the most beautiful commentary on dharma that I've come across.
No, I mean it's the same. We have 4 purushartha, and Artha is one of them. So
of course. So Artha is on an equal footing. I mean, Kama is on an equal footing with dharma and Artha.
Right. Absolutely. So I think I would open the floor for some questions if somebody has. Is that okay, Saiswaroopa ji?
Yes, I'll be happy to take questions.
Okay, so if you raise your hand and I'll unmute you, and my quick request only is that time is of an essence. So if you want to take more questions, just make it very, very, very brief and pointed. So I have Sumant ji. Okay. Can you ask Sumant ji?
Namaste. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, Sumanji. Namaste.
Namaste, Saiji, and Namaste, Avatanji. My question is, I don't know how to put this. Today in this world where you get to know, I would say know as such, you get to hear a lot from all corners of the world at a time. I get a feeling that there is a sense that the so-called educated people, especially because we have our basic insecurities taken care of, we think we can understand, and we want to understand, and hence have an opinion on everything under sun or beyond. But in the, I wouldn't say ancient society, at least in the dharmic society, is that how it works? Did everybody everybody understand everything, or did they just follow and actually enact what they were supposed to do and leave the others do their dharma? Because it's like, today, whether even within the so-called right wing, that so much debate that we have, I get a sense that we try to have an opinion on everything because I want to understand everything. Is it even possible?
Okay. So having an opinion, I think our opinions are always characterized by our own experiences, Sumantji, because most of the middle class today, as I know, have come from very humble backgrounds. So, it has, everyone has put up a fight to reach wherever they have reached, and rightfully they are proud about their particular journeys. So they'll be passionately advocating their side of stuff, saying, this works, this doesn't work, right? And at the same time, we know that everyone's experience is kind of limited to whatever they have been exposed to, and they may be right and they may be wrong, or they might not be just right enough. As Krishna felt it with various people he observed. So Satrajit is right, but not ideal enough. And a lot of Satyaki is right, but not ideal enough. And, the Pandavas are very much right, but may not be. So Krishna knew that somewhere he had to be everyone, and not everyone have that capacity, Sumanji. And coming from to the dharmic society, I think ancient dharmic society had a sort of hierarchy, and the hierarchy was not oppressive. It was a very strong role based hierarchy. It was not it was not like a king had all the powers. The king, to reach there, had to undergo that rigorous training. which keeps him grounded. And a lot of even in the classical period, I think the prince, once he finishes his training in the Gurukula, is required to go on an Agnyata tour, where he's supposed to tour the kingdom not as a prince but as a commoner, and stay amongst the people for a year or two, understand them, and come back with what he can do for them, which is when he would be declared fit to inherit the throne. Right, so there is something, there is a lot of perspective gaining that used to be emphasized in a dharmic society. But then that being said, I think we are always an evolving society, so there are times where the best of the people may fall short of what is required, and it's a journey for everyone. Right.
Yeah, if I may say quickly that there is a concept of adhikara. Adhikara is not power. It's not like adhikari. We have jiladhikari and all that powerful people. Adhikara means you are empowered, not powerful. So people have to be adhikari to to make contributions in their field. And also in terms of this
and adhikara is something like today you might not have, but 2 years later you can acquire it with your sadhana and all. It's not like your caste or social status stops you from having a certain adhikara.
You're not okay.
Adhikar is also given to somebody who you think should have the responsibility. So adhikar also depends on somebody's responsibility or capability to do the nirvahan, like kartavya nirvahan.
Right.
Exactly. Absolutely. And even that is dynamic, like dharma.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, I have Shiv Kumar Swami, and go ahead, Shiv Kumar ji.
Hello, namaste sir, namaste everyone, namaste everyone who is here.
Shiv Kumar ji.
I would like to know that when I heard about the Mahabharata, there was one thing which always came into doubt when it was Dharma word, like when it comes to the story of Barbika, like Krishna would have let him fight in the field of Kurukshetra, for to Barbika. So that what is your comment on this one?
Firstly, Barbarica does not figure in the Mahabharata, Shiv Kumarji. So there's, he is mentioned in Skanda Purana, basically.
Yes.
And as far as I know, my knowledge of Skanda Purana is not as much as my knowledge of Mahabharata. I'm not, I don't try to boast of my knowledge here, but Barbarica had, as far as I know, had this, not obsession exactly, but something to support the weak. So, if you let him participate in where, in any, war or a debate or anything where there are two sides, he'd keep toggling between sides and the war would never end, right? And war is something where, there is a lot of life loss and stuff. You want it to end quickly with, minimum loss as minimum loss as possible. You want to finish off the enemy, like at least you finish off the king on the other side as soon as possible, so that soldiers on both sides don't suffer life loss, right? That's the way one responsible warrior thinks. Shivaji used to think that way. He never used to massacre whole armies as such. He used to target leaders, he used to target those key personnel, and and sometimes negotiate. I think Shivaji is the best. Shivaji Maharaj is the best example of dharma, somebody who practiced dharma in the recent times.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and so we have Sevari ji. So let's see what he has. Go ahead.
Yeah, namaste to all. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, so my question is, we have read in Mahabharata, like when the Swayamvar is happening and Arjuna is supposed to, shoot the arrow in the eye of the fish, and Karna is not given the opportunity because he is supposed to be a Sutputra. How far is that
That's what
true?
I
What is the
handled in the beginning of the presentation. In a lot of Mahabharata, the editions of Mahabharata, even in the critical edition, Karna participates in the Swayamvara. So
and he fails? Is that
yes, he fails. He fails. By a
okay?
very short this one.
Margin, okay.
Yeah.
And the other question was like there's so much of misinformation in the TV shows that are being showed
Yes.
on the television. Like,
Yes.
the Suryaputra Karna, he is always like, there are casteist overtones throughout the TV serial. Even in other TV serials, there's so much of misinformation. So how do we counter it? And like, I mean, to which
Uh,
would be the actual sources or the true
So
sources
two
to
ways
refer
to
to?
counter this would be, one is to read the unabridged edition ourselves and encourage study of the unabridged edition. As I said, the purpose of Mahabharata is not for us to judge whether who was the best, whether he did right or wrong, but to learn from the text and be a better version of ourselves with every reading. Right, that is the true purpose, or the prayojana of Mahabharata. Once all of us start doing it, it won't matter whether Karna suffered, whether Karna achieved, Arjuna achieved, whether he was an entitled person or privileged person or anything like that. We begin to understand the struggle of each of those ancient people, right, and become better people ourselves. Right, once we understand the core purpose of this text, this kind of misinformation will not attain a lot of mileage, but this takes time. So the short term approach, which I suggest to everyone is, or anybody who's passionate about it, is to start writing short pieces, Twitter threads, novels, or short stories or articles, or whatever you manage to study and you can manage to counter. Please keep writing in whatever medium you can, so that that kind of useless propaganda is countered.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we're coming close to our session here. So, Saiswaroopa ji, can you please also quickly mention the names of your books? And if you have them, hold it up and so people can see, and maybe perhaps they
Yes.
can buy it and read it too.
Yes, before I start that, there's one question by Kiran saying the recommendation of abridged version. I was actually referring to the critical, what is called as the critical edition, Kiranji. This is something, when this institute, Bhandarkar Oriental Research Institute, started its work of compiling Mahabharatas, they discovered that there were about more than 1,000 recensions or editions of Mahabharata with very minor differences between each other. So they started combing out inconsistencies, basically, where the one incident happens in, say, Adi Parva, and it is again recounted in, say, Vanaparva. So both the stories have to be consistent. So if some inconsistency is found, they used to take the more consistent version, ignore this particular thing and take the more consistent version. They used to refer to this one and take the more consistent version. So that way they managed to put together a critical edition, which took about 20 pundits, 20 or more pundits, some 30 years to put that together. So you can be sure of the rigor that went into the work. So we can start our study. It's going to take time. 10-volume book of each of 500 pages is going to take time, but I would advocate that all of us read that, taking our own time, take good advantage of the lockdown period and read as much as as one can.
Yep.
Thank
Certainly.
you.
So Okay, then I think so. I'll quickly take leave after mentioning about my books. You've all heard about Abhaya, which is my first book. It's a lot of my passion put into a form of a story. My second book is Avishi. It is a reimagination of a Rigvedic story about a queen called Vishpala, who loses a limb in a war and is granted a prosthetic leg by the Ashwini Kumaras, and she fights with that prosthetic leg. And the most inspiring thing about this story is that this is the world's first reference to prosthesis. Any journal or conference or any exhaustive work on the field of prosthesis starts from the history of this field of medicine, refers to Rigveda as the inspiration. So that, I think, is a very proud thing for every Indian, and we need to talk more about it, which is why I went out of my comfort zone to reimagine the whole tale. And it has been optioned for screen adaptation by a very major studio, and work is going on to bring it onto screen.
Congratulations on that.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. And there's another book, Mauri, which is like a sequel to Abhaya. It's about the daughter of Mura, who is the commander of Narakasura, who is killed in the hands of Krishna. His daughter Mauri, she has a story of her own. She marries Ghatotkacha, whose son is Barbaric, that one of you mentioned here. So that's a good story to explore the way revenge or feeling of that hatred turns into love or devotion that I've explored in Mauri. And the fourth is Draupadi, which you've all seen, and Draupadi, the Tale of Empress, which is by Rupa Publications. The other three were self-published. And my next book would be on Rukmini by Rupa Publications again. So let's hope that we see the other side of COVID-19 as soon as possible so that they can get the book out. So do please check out all the books. I'd be delighted to stay in touch and interact with you all. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your time. Thank you,
Yes,
Avtansji.
really quickly, can you also share your, type in your handle, the Twitter handle? And
Yeah,
while
my
she
Twitter
does
handle,
that,
yeah, that's the place where I'm the most active, is Saiswaroopa.
yeah. And while she does that, I just would like to take this time to let everybody know that we have started a series of these kind of talks, and we have lined up already a couple more talks. So coming up is Dr. Jeffrey Long, that will be having
Wow,
a
I'd
conversation
love to
with
attend that.
Dr. Jeffrey Long, and also Professor Ramesh Rao, who is working on his research is on New York Times and Hinduphobia and things like that. So he'll be presenting in a couple of weeks. So watch out for the details to come up shortly. And I would like to thank here again Nishantji and Ramji for all the coordination here, and our India team, Karan and Harikiranji for all the support, logistics here. And thank you, Saiswaroopa-ji. It
Thanks
was
a
really
lot.
nice talking to you, and we'll be in touch. And stay
I
safe.
immensely enjoyed the session. Thanks everyone for attending.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Hari Om.